Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Ooh, showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime. Showtime.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.
Greetings, true believers. Welcome in, minions, and all around the world as well. I'm Ed Berliner. I am your host here on the fastest show in sports. The gentleman next to me, if you are watching on YouTube, is redhead number 2. That is Kevin Winter, former ESPN anchor. Take the hat off for a minute here. Let's just go ahead and prove again that it is to the people watching on YouTube. Thank you. Okay, now I've seen your hair. Put it back on, please.
Yes, the reason the hat was on.
Why is this? One of these days we have to do this whole sociological thing on why the backwards baseball cap.
You ready?
It's stupid. It looks ridiculous.
Hang on, hold up. There's a reason for this one. So this is a fitted. This is a fitted cap. Fitted caps. It looks better when it looks better backwards.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
no,
it does.
Doesn't.
Fitted caps look better backwards. My other hat, which is it's a World Series hat. That's a nice. That's a regular. That hat looks better forward.
No, no, man. Baseball caps are meant to be worn with the bill in the front. The only reason you've got something on the back is because marketing people stick a logo on the back so that it looks normal, but it's not. It looks.
Ed, just say this line. Get off my lawn.
It is not a lawn issue. Why is it everybody? Look, dude, you're going to be there soon any day now, so don't even start that nonsense. Everybody thinks because you complain about something that it's an old man issue. It's not an old man issue. It just looks bad. That's all. I have baseball caps. When I wear baseball caps, I wear them with the bill in the front. I never turn them around, number one. Number two, I don't wear a lot of baseball caps because they make you bald. And I'm not going to deal with that. I got too much hair.
Look at that head of lettuce. Look at that head of lettuce. I wouldn't be wearing a baseball cap with that head of lettuce either.
Well, but I mean, that's just it, man. I got great hair. I very rarely wear a baseball cap because I look at them and I don't want to go bald in the back. So I'm happy. It's a reason I don't wear a yarmulke. There you go. Same thing.
Let's get that out of the way on Good Friday or Passover Friday, whatever it is, right?
Exactly. Just get it out of the way. So anyway, Mike Wise is not with us this week. He will be with us on the next show. So hang tight. He's the guy that really is the author in all this, and he keeps us pseudo-sane here and there. So today you just get the redheads, and that's going to be dangerous in itself. Look, there's a ton of spit going on here today, but before we get to it, there's a couple of things I just got to get out of my craw here. Will somebody please tell me why there's any kind of simus whatsoever or discussion or anger or anything about Aaron Rodgers? The guy's career is over, for crying out loud. He is not a great quarterback anymore. Everybody's talking about he needs to go to the Steelers. Maybe he goes here. Look, Aaron Rodgers is the guy who comes out and says, the reason I didn't last in New York because they didn't give me the ample respect. What respect? You stunk the joint up for 2 years on a team that stunk the joint up for 2 years. So why is everybody all concerned about Aaron Rodgers? Move along. Bring somebody else in, for crying out loud. I'm tired of this clown.
You are barking up a tree that I tried to bark up when I was at ESPN. Because if at ESPN, if any Aaron Rodgers related topic came across the headline or the news scroll, it was an automatic must put in your SportsCenter update. Or if we're doing a game, must get an Aaron Rodgers update. And I would fight back. No, I'm not putting in this Aaron Rodgers story just because Aaron Rodgers' name is in there.
But what? Okay, so it brings up the point then. Why the ass kissing of Aaron Rodgers, and why is the legitimate media, if you will, all stuck on Rodgers?
He generates clicks, and he generates. Yeah, exactly.
That's the reason.
That's the reason. He generates clicks. He generates interest. This is. Remember in the movie Private Parts with Howard Stern? 90%. Why do people listen
yourself? Most of our audience won't even know that damn movie.
I know. And they probably won't even know the guy because he doesn't do a show anymore. And if he does, it's usually
he's made his billions. He can move on.
He has. He doesn't have to. The movie, Howard Stern, the shock jock. One of the points of the movie was, I want to hear people who like him. Why do they tune in to listen? I want to hear what he says next. People who hate him. Why do they tune in and listen?
They want to hear what he says next.
I want to hear what he says next. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, doesn't matter whether he's good or bad. If you have his name out there, you're going to get a click and you're going to get a reaction.
And I get all that because that's really what it is. It's all about clicks. It's all about looks. It's all about views. And Rodgers has done enough goofy shit in his lifetime, including some of the things that he has said, some of the political, some of the propaganda stuff that he has thrown out there, that everybody wants to get glommed onto him right now because they're desperate to hear not what he says that's intelligent. People want to hear the stupid stuff that Aaron Rodgers says, which is the same reason most stuff becomes clickbait, because it's not, oh, I'm going to learn something or he's going to teach me something or I'm going to really get interested in his conversation. What stupid shit is he going to throw out next that he's going to say that's just going to make me want to laugh, cry, scream, throw something at the screen? That's the big... And to me, I mean, here we are right now. Look, what are we doing? We're sitting here right now.
About Aaron Rodgers.
We're
Yep.
It's the same thing. But I just had to get it off my chest one time and say, move on.
But he stinks as a quarterback. On a football field, he stinks as a quarterback these days. It's over. It's done. It's goodbye. Look, this isn't the same kind of precipitous downfall that Tom Brady had. Brady's became in a few more years at the age of 42, 43, whenever his was. Rodgers was a little earlier, in part because he was coming off of a massive injury when he shattered his Achilles tendon. He ruptured it. There's a reason. And also, you played on a much worse team. Everyone thought that team was going to be good offensively. No, you actually had a good defense in the Jets.
And the only reason people thought the Jets were going to be decent is because they're the New York Jets. Because the media pushes on the Jets because they're a New York franchise and they want them to succeed. And not only that, but there's people out there who have been dying for so long without anything from the Jets. They're desperate to get any good news that they can. The Jets are the single worst organization in the National Football League. Period. End of story. Others might be bad, but the Jets are consistently bad in every decision that they make. Every single one.
It comes to ownership. I remember when Bill Belichick was when he was thinking about getting the job, he said there are two owners. There's Dolan and there's Johnson. And I have a problem with both of them. There's a reason Bill Belichick didn't want to take the job back in the 2000s.
Right.
Because of ownership.
You don't want to go to work for the franchise. You know that it's a black hole no matter what you do. The Giants, okay. Yeah. And again, the other New York franchise or New Jersey franchise, depending on how you look at it, where they play. But the Giants will have an occasional moment where they'll get better. But Jets fans, give it up. Look, I said this a while ago. The New York Jets will not win a Super Bowl for the rest of this decade. They won't touch one. We're in 2025. They won't look at one. And I've even gone as far as to say to some people, I'm 193 years old. I want to tell people right now, for the rest of your life, you will not see the Jets in the Super Bowl. It won't happen.
And by the way,
they're out.
That would not break my heart.
No.
It would not break my heart.
Wouldn't break my heart either, because when I was covering the Dolphins, it was always, I covered the Dolphins for years, and it was always the Jets fans, when they showed up and they had a Jets game at the old Orange Bowl or wherever it was, there would invariably always be a fight somewhere in the stands, and it's invariably always started by Jets fans.
Of course it is.
So,
Jets fans.
It's
all right. So there's Aaron Rodgers. Is this the airing of grievance, the Easter version of airing of grievances?
I'm airing grievances today. Don't stop me. Leave me alone.
I'm not gonna go. I got a couple. I'm just waiting for the opportunity.
Okay, go. I mean, I got my Aaron Rodgers out of the way, and we've already helped the clickbait world with him. Please, God, walk away from Aaron Rodgers.
Last night, the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference for hockey for the Stanley Cup playoffs, it gets determined, and they put up a bracket of the Eastern Conference: Senators, Maple Leafs, Lightning, Panthers, Capitals, Canadians. Washington's got the number 1 seed for the East. Hurricanes, Devils. Can I just tell you, there's not a team in the East that I'm rooting that I would want to see win the Cup. I mean, you know how this operates. I'm a Bruins fan, and I follow Peter Laviolette.
I'm a Bruins fan as well. I get it.
That means I'm a Ranger fan, which also, for right now, We hope for a little longer too.
Wait a minute. If you're a Bruins fan, you can never, ever, 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 on penalty of death or extinction, root for the Rangers.
You can't if you know the coach.
You can't do that.
You can if you know the coach. You can if you know the coach. Can we discuss this? The day I root for the Canadians is the day they attach jumper cables to my testicles. And even then I will never root for the Canadians.
You just made every guy in the audience, everybody just kind of wince just a little bit, just at the mere thought of that.
The day I root for the Canadians, hell freezes over. I guess the Maple Leafs, but because they got a couple of friends from ESPN, and one of them's a long-suffering Maple Leaf fan, and he finally got to see Toronto in the second round in color television a couple of years ago.
No more consigliere. No more making deals. No more telling me about cannoli. No more nothing. No more. There's another one you can't. If you're a Bruins fan, you can never root for the Maple Leafs. That's sacrosanct.
That's fine. Okay, so hang on. So I'm looking at this. Maple Leaf Senators. I love the fact, Ed, that a Canadian team still has not won the cup since before I graduated high school. So let's keep that rolling. Capitals. Maybe do I root for Ovi? Hurricanes, Devils. Those two franchises have never tickled my fancy. Lightning, Panthers. Forget rooting for any team.
It's a hell of a fancy to tickle, but that's another story.
That's a fair point. Lightning, Panthers. As a Bruins fan, never rooting for Florida. I don't care about Marchand. Sorry, you just don't root for Florida. I think Matthew Tkachuk's a POS.
Well, we agree on that. Although we agree at the same time that if Matthew Tkachuk comes open and the Bruins can afford him, they'll pick him up.
Yes,
guaranteed.
Agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. He needs to be your POS. He has to be our own.
That's the way it is in the National Hockey League. You hate the guys of the POS, but as long as they're your POS, you can get along with them and love them. There you go.
So I'm looking at the East. There's not a team that I want to see win the Cup. The West is interesting. Look, I've always been fascinated by the Edmonton Oilers, especially back in the day, because that's really when I got into hockey with Bruins Oilers. I've already got. I think I've already told you guys I got a ticket on the Avalanche. So there it comes back to gambling. I got a ticket on the Avalanche, tied in with the Yukon Women, the Florida Panthers, and the Boston Celtics to win $9,000 on a $10 ticket. So I need the Avalanche to win. So obviously I'm rooting for the Avalanche, but it's an interesting setup here, man. It really is.
Well, look,
it's a really interesting setup.
I was there when the Florida Panthers were born. I was there at their first game. I had season tickets for the first 5 years because I was covering and also working in South Florida at the time, and I just so desperately wanted hockey. It was great to have it in our backyard. My mom, God rest her soul, she kept every one of the stupid little gewgaws and little trinkets that the Panthers gave away, which is all of these paperweights and these pins and everything else. I still have them. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with them. I just can't bring myself to throw them out.
I get it.
And I'd love to be able to give them to somebody. So in that sense, I was there at the beginning. I was there when Scott Mellenby one time the rat into the wall at the locker room that started the infamous rat trick. And you could still walk into the locker room for a short period of time and see the blood stain that the rat left on the locker room because they left it there because they went out and won, and that's when the rats started to fly onto the ice.
Yep.
So there's that slight bit there where I'm going to root for the Panthers, but only because I want to see Marchand win a cup. Because of that reason, he got screwed at the end with the Bruins. He's a hell of a player. He's just one of those guys that you got to love. And again, he's the POS that's on your team. The other people consider him the POS. I want to see him win the cup. I want to see him have the ring. I want to see him bring it back to Boston. And I want him to shove it in Sweeney's face, the general manager, and Cam Neely as well, and say, here, look what I won. Look what I won, by the way, because you guys have sucked this franchise up for the last 2 years, basically screwed it up. So I'd like to do that. I will never root for the Lightning to win a Stanley Cup in any stretch of the imagination or any of the Canadian teams. The other side of that is I think Colorado's the Stanley Cup champion this year. I do believe that the Avalanche are going to win the cup. Now, if you put it on the both sides, if you gave me an Avalanche Washington final,
Yeah.
oh, I'd love that. I mean, that would be the perfect final to have. I don't know if the Caps are going to get there, but that to me is the perfect setting this year.
Which one seed's got a better chance of getting knocked off in your opinion? The Capitals or the Jets?
Jets.
Jets?
Jets, yes.
It's a lot harder. So the Jets bracket is Jets, Blues, Stars, Avalanche. That's that bracket.
Right.
And then if you make it to the conference finals, the Golden Knights, the Wild, Minnesota could be real funky. Golden Knights, Wild, Kings, or Oilers will be waiting for them.
That's
it.
The West that sets up the Oilers Avalanche for the Western Conference title, which I think is very likely.
Yep.
And as far as the East is concerned, again, I've just got something has told me for months now that Ottawa is the spoiler. And
Ottawa's sitting in the Ottawa's in the bracket with Toronto and then the two Florida teams. Washington is in the other side with the Devils and Hurricanes.
Yeah. And I think the Devils can be one of those teams that can pop out of nowhere and certainly can be a team that can win it. I think Washington has got the emotion on their side right now because of Ovi. They would like to go ahead now that he has surpassed Gretzky's record. They'd like to be able to give him the cup as well in the same year. The Panthers certainly are still as good as they ever were, despite the fact that they've had a lot of injuries this year. I think they can take the Lightning in the first round. You're probably looking at a Washington Panthers
Florida
Eastern Conference final to get there, which wouldn't really upset me at all. I'm a Marchand fan. I got the Marchand jersey in the closet. I mean, I just would love to see him win the cup this year because, look, if you're a Bruins fan, you're looking at the fact that they probably should have won at least 2 more cups since the 2011 Stanley Cup year. At least 2 more cups. But
they should have had.
The players screwed it up, and then Sweeney and Neely screwed it up.
You had 2013 where you make it, and then what was it, 2018? Was that the loss to the Blues? Whatever you lost to the Blues. The one to St. Louis hurt. The loss to St. Louis, that one hurt because that shouldn't have happened.
Well, but also the loss to St. Louis hurt, but so did the fact that they were the best team in the National Hockey League 2 seasons ago, and they just completely went in the tank in that first round. And one of these days, somebody's going to talk about that because I know everybody who are hockey fans are going to say, well, it's just because they won the President's Trophy and that's what happens. You win the PT and you lose in the playoffs. Something else happened that year. There's no reason why that team came down to the line with Bergeron, with Krejci, with Marchand, with all the great players, and then they just take it in the pipe in the first round. Something went on in that locker room, and we haven't quite figured it out yet, and we'll figure it out one of these days. What do you walk away to blow your nose? You can blow it on camera. Remember, I don't feel like blowing
my nose on camera. I actually need to get a Kleenex.
Because if you do it on camera, then somebody will copy it and they'll put it out there forever to see that Kevin Winter blows.
And we have a drop. And we got this. So
go ahead.
Well, again, the East. I can't do the East. I just can't. I thought about it last night. Too many Canadian. I still, Ed, want no Canadian hockey team winning the cup.
You just hate Canadians. Let's get it out in the open right now.
Sure. Let's go.
You American jingoist. You just don't want Canada to win it because you hate Canada. You're the problem in America right now.
Yeah, sure. I'm the problem. I'm the problem.
Let's stop. Okay, we're starting to head down that exit ramp right now, and I'll be.
Yeah, hang on. Mike usually directs us off or just drives us into the wall.
So we're going to move
on.
Guys,
don't worry. Keep going. There's plenty of room down the exit ramp.
Since we are sitting here in the National Hockey League, we got a bunch of other stuff to get to too. But let's bring this up. The National Hockey League had 23 million fans this year. They set another attendance record in the NHL this year. Now, granted, that attendance record is a little bit inflated because you have the Stadium Series, and that will always bring you more bodies, and because it's a novelty, even though, to me, that novelty's kind of worn off a little bit. But just the fact that they continue to grow, yet the ratings don't grow as well. People still belittle the National Hockey League. There's still those who claim that it's not a great sport to watch. Look, stop this right now. The players in the National Hockey League are the best conditioned, best athletes in any of the 4 major team sports in America. Period. End of story. Stop right there. Because if you look at what they do on the ice, if you look at the constant flow of the game, if you look at the fact that they're in, they're out, they're changing, they're moving, the fact that you've got players moving in and out on a regular basis in every single period is in and of itself a great athletic moment. So to me, I'll take a National Hockey League player and the National Hockey League action over football, baseball, basketball every single day of the week, because to me, those guys are just kind of, they're getting it done, but nothing at the level of the National Hockey League, which then leaves that question, why then does the National Hockey League not catch on faster and better and get more ratings?
I'll try to answer that in a moment. 2 things when it comes to the NHL. Number 1, I remember this growing up. Number 1 was my dad ran into Mike Lynch, who used to run up here at Channel 5 in Boston for so many years as the news anchor. My dad's office was he ran the locks right next to the garden. And my dad and Mike, this is back in the 80s, they were talking about hockey players, and my dad asked Mike, why are they so nice? And he said, because they're the lowest paid. They're the lowest paid players, and it's one of the reasons they're so nice. Okay. And it's fact on both ends. And they usually are the nicest of the players.
Yes,
and
without question.
More approachable.
Yes.
And then when I started doing radio up here in Boston at 1510 The Zone, see, I like talking Bruins. And one of the producers, young producer, but he had been there before me, he says, I love talking Bruins too, but here's the thing. The phone lines are going to light up. Do not think we're loaded, because you're going to lose all the Red Sox, Patriots, and Celtic listeners. They're going to tune out. But the Bruin fan base is going to join in droves. It's a clique. The hockey players and the hockey fandoms, if you start talking hockey, you're going to get great hockey talk. But no one else sticks around to listen to back up your point, right? It's, why does that happen? And it's an actual fact. You can check the ratings. It usually does happen. Now the question is why? Why does it happen? And I don't know. I've never been able to come up with an answer.
See, I'm going to extrapolate something here on all that because I've been trying to figure it out as well. And you're right. If you start talking hockey on any one of the sports shows, you will get the hockey fan who will show up, but everybody else will disappear immediately. They don't want to hang out. When I listen to the NHL Network and some of the shows that are there, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the people, personalities, whatever, but it's boring. And I'm a hockey fan, and I'm listening to it.
It's hard to listen, yes, agreed.
Because it's just, they try to dredge up the same stuff over and over again from the past. They talk about the players as if it's a hands-off. The one thing to keep in mind is people who work in the NHL sphere do not want to piss off anybody in the NHL sphere, because the league, remember, has a hand in just about everything, like the NHL Network, all the different broadcasts. They don't want any controversy. They keep it out, don't do it, tamp it down, don't talk about players if there's anything going on. But that's part of the issue. There really is no controversy in the NHL. Ovechkin's playing well. Marchand gets traded on the last in the last couple of weeks of the season. But NHL players aren't caught with guns in their hands.
Nope.
They're not caught with domestic violence on a regular basis, even though there has been a history of it in the past from time to time. They're not caught gambling on their own teams. There's not the pissing back and forth between the players going nuts on X or any of the social media, because the players are all told, stay off it, stop, don't do it. You're going to hurt the organization, and then you're going to hurt the NHL as well, so you don't want to get into that. And the players basically play that game. They keep it all tamped down. So while we can talk about the crap happening in the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball, and all the different controversies that go on, there's no controversy in the NHL. He's playing well. He's doing well. The team's doing well. You're the one who brings up the controversy because you don't want a Canadian team to win. So that's the biggest
Biggest
controversy that you can think about. But there's nothing clickbaitable in the NHL to talk about, and that drives people away. There's always something that'll grab you on clickbait in baseball, basketball, and certainly in football when you go to both the NFL and college football.
Let's go a step further. Not just clickbaitable. In the NFL, and more importantly in the NBA, you can actually see a player's individual talent, and it can be more relatable to most viewers, correct? A player's talent, if you have a basketball player, I can appreciate as someone who picks up a ball in the street. I can appreciate the moves, the individual moves that a basketball player makes. I might play flag football or street football. I could appreciate more so the moves that a Lamar Jackson can make. Not many people can skate, Ed, and you can't relate to the moves that the Sidney Crosbys of the world, or the Alexander Ovechkins, or the Connor McDavids, that they can make with their stick by stick handling. You've got no recollection of that. Even if you played street hockey,
fair,
you've got no recollection. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I remember in gym class in high school, all the hockey players wanted to play, because I went to Mount St. Charles, all the hockey players wanted to play basketball, and all the basketball players wanted to play street hockey. And then the one hockey player played street hockey with us, and I'm watching his hands. I'm watching him move the stick. I'm thinking, how the hell do your hands move so fast? I couldn't relate to that. So maybe that's part of the reason for the ratings. The most of the audience can't relate and can't appreciate the skills that these hockey players have.
Which then comes down to the next, and I think you're onto something here, because if you look at the game itself, hockey itself, in a broadcast, it is moving so incredibly fast. The players are changing on a second's notice. You have guys who are out there maybe for 20, 25, 30 seconds on a shift. Bang, they move, they come in, here comes the next guy. There is a constant flow to the point where when you're watching it on television, you're seeing the game move like this. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I'm just going from left to right, and that's what it is. It's a constant motion game to where there's very little focus on the individual players. But in the NBA, it's a much slower game. It's a much more compact game where you can see what's going on. When you look and NBA players, let's say, come into the offensive zone, and you watch them in the rare time it doesn't take them 6 seconds to pop a three, you can see the entire play developing right there in front of you. You can see what every player is doing, so you can appreciate what every player is doing. In the NFL, again, everything stops and then resets. Stops and then resets. You can see everybody that's there in the game, and there's ISO cameras for the two wide receivers, for the quarterback, for certain players, because they have X number of cameras, a greater number of cameras. Baseball, it is also, everything stops. The only thing you're watching is pitcher, catcher, batter, pitcher, catcher, batter. You don't give a crap what the left fielder is doing at that time or what the second baseman is doing, but you will see him move when the play happens around him. I think you've got to be a more intelligent fan, a sports fan, to watch hockey than any other sport. And I'll say I think it also goes a little bit to soccer, but more hockey than anything else, because the game is happening so fast, you've really got to pay attention. If you're not paying attention, you're missing what's going on. And I think that sometimes leads to a boredom factor from the casual fan who doesn't want to invest that time. That's a long answer on what you're saying, but it's the only thing that I can see that sets the game apart and why people don't want to pay the time to watch the game other than a well-invested hockey fan.
I agree with you, and I like how you took it a step further, because if you watch the hockey game, the production of a hockey game these days is incredible. It's hard to actually to get lost in it, even as a casual fan. It's hard to not know where the puck is. Like, years ago, before the advent of 4K or HD TV, you couldn't find the puck. Sometimes you had no idea where the puck was, right?
Which, of course, for people who are not of a certain era, it came to a time when NBC TV put a
No,
glowing.
Fox put the glow. Fox had
Wait a
the
minute.
glow
I
puck.
thought it was. Wait a minute. Didn't NBC do it first when Peter Puck was around? Didn't they glow it first?
Maybe they did. But I thought Fox
Okay.
put the glow, and then they had the red line if you got the puck, if you got the slap shot
Right.
over 100 miles an hour.
That
Yes.
was definitely Fox. The glowing
Okay.
puck and then the red line that showed the actual
Velocity
path of the
Yeah.
puck,
the shot.
which was in any sense, whether it was NBC or Fox, it was freaking horrible.
It was awful.
It was
but
terrible.
today's game is the production value of a hockey game is so increased and out of this world. You should be able to sit back and enjoy it. The question is, do you understand the game? And maybe that goes back to your point about the knowledge of the game of hockey. Do you actually understand what's happening? Are you listening to Jimmy or are you hearing Jimmy? According to Woody Harrelson and White Men Can't Jump. Are you listening to Jimi Hendrix or are you only hearing Jimi Hendrix? Do you really hear Jimi Hendrix? Are you watching or are you actually seeing what's happening in the game of hockey?
Well, that's why I think hockey fans are, and I'll catch a lot of heat for this, and I really don't care. I think they are a more intelligent fan because you've got to pay attention to see
Sure.
what's going on. You have got to watch the speed of the game, and you have got to then take into effect what happens around the game when in baseball, football, and basketball, it is a stop motion game that is easier to grasp and handle and even understand because there's a lot less going on the field of play than what goes on in hockey.
That's fair. And like I said, and for a basketball fan, some basketball kids, I can go out in my driveway and shoot threes. If I were better and taller, I could go out and throw an alley-oop to someone. If I knew a friend who could dunk. I could go out and back in my day, I could dribble between my legs. I could ball handle. That's more relatable to most kids and to most people. Not many are putting on skates.
Well, I think also that the National Hockey League at one point and the networks decided, and this comes down to the NBC time and the Fox time as well, let's teach the game to people. This is what we're going to do in order to make sure that they understand the game better.
Yeah.
With the advent now, when you mentioned it, of HD and 4K and the way it's nearly impossible to miss the puck at this time. You can watch it as long as you have that ability to watch it in a certain sense. But if they spent more time focusing on, let's say, an ISO camera on Charlie McAvoy, on Tkachuk, on Ovechkin, on some of these other players, on Marchand even, whatever the favorite team is, or Connor Bedard, whatever, spend some time focusing on them and watching what they do away from the puck, to the puck, and getting it. I think you're going to have a better grasp of the game because then you become more inquisitive to say, well, they scored, but they actually scored because of 3 plays earlier with what happened, and that made the play happen. It's a tough thing to do with limited cameras at a National Hockey League game, but it's something I think they need to look into.
Here's the interesting part. You're now going to lose the pure hockey fan, and I know this because when I was at ESPN, one thing ESPN does is they will, I believe, especially on power play, ESPN will put on the screen, they'll identify the players who are on the ice. They'll put they'll identify them. And I've had on Facebook, I've had certain people comment to me, tell the people at ESPN we don't need that. We know who these people are. And it's like, well, wait a minute. This means the game's not for you. You're going to watch anyway. You're a hockey fan. This game is for the person who isn't familiar with the game.
Yeah.
And you lose, the actual diehard hockey fan gets pissed that their beloved game's being taught to someone else.
Well, see, and that's an arrogance too. I think what you have to
total arrogance.
It is that hockey fan saying, "I don't need this." Well, we understand that, but it's not going to hurt your understanding of the game any. It's not going to hurt your enjoyment of the game any because the game is still in front of you. But if the National Hockey League wants to continue to grow and find the ratings, which they need, which comes down to sponsor and money and everything else that they need, they have to bring in the next generation of fans and get them excited about the game. And to me, that's the way you do it. You do have to kind of have an educational element in there because hockey is the most difficult of the 4 major team sports, the 5 major team sports, put soccer in there as well, it is the most difficult to follow and understand, without question, because of the way the penalties are called, because of the way the offside is, because of the minute moments of what happens in those plays, specifically on offsides and goals as well, which the National Hockey League did a great job of now having the cameras on the line to be able to point out the offside, which is the difficult point to get, and look down. The overhead camera on goals is one of the best things that ever happened to them.
Masterful. Yep.
Because it now gives you that look at it, and the different ways to look at what happens around the goal has really changed the game. But the arrogant fan is going to have their arrogance, but they'll still stick around. You got to bring somebody else in. The arrogant, dedicated fan won't go away because you're simply isolating on Ovechkin for a game.
No, they're just going to be pissed. They're just going to be pissed off, and they're going to bark and all this other stuff.
Be pissed off and be barked off. Now that's where you can say, "Get off my lawn." Okay, you can make a lawn thing there. I'll add this too before we move on, that I've called every sport on television and radio at one time in my career.
You call hockey on radio?
I will. Hockey on radio. Did it very briefly.
Woo-wee!
I can tell you that as far as an announcer is concerned, the play-by-play, the best play-by-play people in any sport today, any sport period, are the guys and the gals who call hockey. It is the toughest thing to do. I remember the first time when I was in Boston and they said, "We're doing a hockey game." It was a college hockey game at the time. Sure. And you're our number one guy, so you're going to call it. Have you ever called hockey before? Oh, yeah, I've done that before. Never touched a televised hockey game before in my life, and I crammed like crazy. And I was still way behind. I mean, sure. I wasn't even close to being real good. I had to let a whole lot of things go. And that's when I got a real appreciation for hockey. They're just the best.
By the way, Sean McDonough was born to call hockey. McDonough was born to call hockey on ABC.
And so was Sam Rosen.
So was Sam Rosen, yes. And Sam's retired.
Sam Rosen was born to call the game. I mean, he just, and thankfully I have had a chance over the years to befriend and discuss and have Sam as guests on my various shows. Brilliant individual, fun guy.
Sure.
And we haven't even touched on the fact that hockey players are the nicest people in the world.
I said that off the top.
To get along. You did.
That was one of the first things my dad taught me when I was growing up. Hockey players are the nicest because they make the least. And by the way, that is still now.
Well, they're family too.
They're 100% family. There's a large part of them are family oriented. But the latter part of that statement, they make the least, it is still 100% true. Out of all the major sports, they make the least amount of money.
We'll go off on this on another day about the family aspect of hockey players, because that's always the thing. These guys and these gals are all family. Their families take them to the rinks at 4:00 in the morning. They go to all the practices. They hang with them. They have their brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandparents, and everybody shows up at the rink. You don't get that in any other sport at that level. It happens occasionally, but you don't get it at that level at any time. That family bond that puts them in there. All right, we're off on hockey. What else you got? I mean, I got a couple of other things here, but we've rolled off.
Let's see.
Hockey. Huh?
Let's go. What do you got? I mean, the only other thing that kind of I'm very interested in the NBA playoffs. I mean, I see. To me, this is probably one of the two best times of the year, because you've got two of the four major sports are opening up their rounds of playoffs at the exact same time. So for the next 2 months, Ed, every single night, there's going to be a game of significance on. And I enjoy this aspect. You've got TNT and Max. One night they'll do basketball, and while they're doing basketball, ESPN will do hockey. And then the next night they're going to flip. ESPN will do basketball and TNT will do hockey. It's the way the calendar sets up. The fact that because they both have these contracts, I used to love it all the time.
Okay, now wait a minute. Hang on a sec. Are you really interested in the games because you're really interested in the sport, or you're watching your betting lines? Come on, be honest. Be honest.
You want to know what? It's more. It's more. I'm interested in the sport. It's more. I'm interested in the sport.
That's surprising. Well,
Look,
I thought you'd throw the gambling in there as your number one reason.
no. Look, I'm a diehard basketball fan growing up. It's the first thing I ever played, first ball that was ever put in my hand. Don't make a comment. It was the first. It was the it was the first ball that was ever put in my hand to play a sport, and so I've loved
Good. I'm
basketball.
glad you cleaned that up. Very nice. For the
Thank you,
YouTube
buddy.
audience, you enjoyed the eyeball roll. For the podcast audience, don't worry, it was there.
Yeah. Don't worry about the podcast audience. You can just kind of go, did he really just say that? Larry Bird was my first idol. It was the first basketball player that I ever fell in love with, and I went, holy shit, look at this guy. He's awesome. And guess what? He looks like me. You know, it's my guy. So basketball is my number one sport. So I do love the NBA. I love the Celtics. The gambling aspect. Look, I'm also unemployed these days, so we got to be careful when we're gambling here. We got to make sure that we have money to pay rent first.
Thank you very much.
Right? Exactly. So,
see, and it's because you're right. It's an exciting time of year because you have two sports that are fully involved in their playoffs right now. Major League Baseball is sitting there if you still want to get involved in baseball. And to me, I don't get involved in baseball until after the Stanley Cup playoffs are done. When they're done, then I'll go ahead and pay attention to baseball.
Here's the good thing for baseball. The weather actually is probably going to start to get a little warmer because right now here in the Northeast, it sucks.
Don't worry, it will get a lot warmer, like 110 degrees when we're all frying to death. But we've discussed this before in past shows, and you and I have discussed this over the years. I don't watch the NBA.
I know.
I mean, it's not that I hate it. If it's on and if there's something interesting, yeah, I might stop by for about 5-10 minutes, probably at the end of the game, because there is no sport where you can blow off the first 95% of the game and just walk in the last 4 minutes, 3 minutes of the game, and you can be entertained than basketball.
Agree.
You don't have to.
And also that will take a half hour anyway.
The pure exact. Well, in college
hour.
Basketball, it'll take a week and a half. But
yes.
That's really it to me. You watch those last couple of minutes. It's great. You enjoy it. It's got some drama there. So if we ever get around to, with the time that we have going forward and in other shows, talk about the NBA, I'm leaving it to you, Kev. You could tell me what's going. You could tell me right now that the Memphis Grizzlies and the Indiana Pacers are the two best teams in the NBA, and I'll go, okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, you buy it.
I'll bite, man. I mean,
Hey! By the way, for the
no
record,
idea.
for the record, because we do like to do this, and I know our buddy Mike Wise is not here. So on Tuesday, you said to Mike and I, "Are there any good gambling tips?" And this is just to clean up a little housekeeping procedure. Mike says, "Take Orlando." And I against the Atlanta Hawks, and I say Orlando's laying 5.5. He says, lay the points. Orlando wins by like 20. I back that up with take the Memphis Grizzlies plus the points against the Warriors. Memphis loses, but they wind up losing by 5. The spread was 7.5. Okay, so now we're 2 for 2. Mike then says, and I was in agreement wholeheartedly, take Miami over Chicago. And Miami absolutely boat raced Chicago.
Which, for whatever reason, they happen to do on a regular basis. That much I do.
They really do. They really own them. So, for the record, Mike and I went 3-0 on the last 2 days.
Okay, then.
Just a little housekeeping procedure.
Seeing as then you nailed it, what are the locks then, Mr. Mr. Winter Wonderful, when it comes down to nailing down the gambling side of things? What are your NBA locks?
Hang on. I got to open up the NBA tonight.
For some members of the audience, I want to apologize right up front for getting here, because I told myself I wasn't going to get this deep into the gambling side, but I knew it was going to happen sooner or later. And
well, it's going to happen every week.
Yes.
This is almost one of those. This is almost one of those every show. Gambling is going to come up because no longer is it taboo. All right. Miami's laying 1.5 tonight. Oh, boy, I don't like that at all. And I hate Trae Young. But, man, give me the Hawks. And Give me Memphis minus the 6.5 against Dallas.
Okay. That's it. That's the gambling segment right there. Although I'll tell you, if we ever wound up having a handicapping spot on the show's ratings and the clicks would probably go through the ceiling because
it absolutely goes through the roof.
Everybody, well, again, it's one of those things. I've had handicappers and experts and analysts on my shows before in the past, but that's when there was a small cottage industry of that, of maybe 20, 30 people. Now it's 20 or 30,000 who call themselves experts.
Agreed.
And to be honest, I watch them, I look at them, I see what they do, and most of them screw it up anyway. Don't come close.
Well, I mean, look, you're never going to be perfect. The only way you're ever going to be perfect is if you get a DeLorean, you go 30 years into the future, you grab the sports almanac,
get
like
Biff's
Michael
book. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but Biff's book, you grab that, and then you come back, and then you can actually bet every game and win every game. It's the only way. I mean, every handicapper can say, "Oh, I have got this system." This is still human beings playing versus human beings and playing a game that is decided by human beings when it comes to be officials. There's no foolproof plan for gambling. A good gambler will tell you, if you get 65% winners, that's barely a little bit more than breaking even, going 50-50. And if you figure some juice in there, right, and some vig, if you get 65% winners, you're an incredible gambler. Like that's the way gambling works. Back to this time of year. To me, there's nothing better than seeing on the scrolls. I mean, I know they don't try to put as many hockey games on the same time anymore, and neither NBA games. You want to try to spread them out. Both leagues would like it so each game gets its own audience. Now, maybe you have to put a couple here in round one because you've got so many. There's nothing better than for a hockey game seeing it late in the third period or end of regulation tied 1-1. End of regulation tied 2-2. Because then I know no matter what happens, I am clicking on that hockey game. I may have to boot up a laptop for a secondary device to watch a basketball game, but I am clicking on a hockey game that is in overtime. Absolutely.
You degenerate gambler.
But it's more of, hey, you wonder where that comes from, Ed? When I was at ESPN, one of my studios, there were two major studios that I worked out of. The big studios, we call them, where you wind up seeing a lot of the shows. Those studios had 8 TVs, and they were 52-inch televisions. There were 8 52-inch televisions in those studios. The small Sports Center studios, there were 16 12-inch TVs. I am the king of watching 6 televisions at once and knowing and you can only listen to one, obviously, but knowing what's going on. I miss my 16 TVs. I'm not going to lie.
So in other words, you put your ADHD to good use. Very nice.
I absolutely do. I absolutely put the ADHD. There's not many people who can do it and watch 16 TVs. I could watch 16 TVs. But back to the point of a hockey game in overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Oh, baby. That is the best thing in the world. That is the best thing in sports.
It's the one thing. We go back to hockey again, but there's two things here. First of all, the National Hockey League has got it knocked when it comes down to deciding a tie game at the end of regulation. The 3-on-3 is simply, without question, the best way to settle a tie game. However, I will tell you that I hate the shootout, cannot stand, abhor the shootout for so many reasons. I'd like to see them continue that 3-on-3 or come up with something else, but I understand. You can only have it for a short period of time. The novelty doesn't wear off, and then you got to go to the shootout. I get it there. But you are right in the sense that overtime, Stanley Cup playoff hockey, there's nothing better. You're not screwing around with the rules. You're not telling me that a guy is going to get a kickoff here and there's going to be a 20-yard here, and you're not going to tell me that
one hockey player starts at the other blue line.
Oh, for Christ's sake! It's just there's nothing worse than the National Football League and college football when it comes down to settling overtime. Nothing worse. They've screwed it up ad nauseum. And I can't think of any other sport. I mean, baseball has it, but you still have that chance where you get the top of the inning, the bottom of the inning. I get that.
Yep.
Hockey, it's it, baby. You make one mistake and you're out. I mean, the drama level there is just Perfect. Okay.
And so not just in overtime. You get an overtime in a game 7. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. You're calling friends. That's when the text goes out. Hey, such and such is in overtime. Put the game on.
See, that's it. I don't want to tell anybody, and if you're listening or watching, and if you've never done it before, if you're not a hockey fan, do yourself a favor. If any of the Stanley Cup playoff games get into an overtime situation this year,
just
watch it.
Yep.
Just, you can feel the tension that comes through the screen every single time, or the radio play-by-play. It is the best, the absolute best. So what is the most annoying story this week in football? It's got to come down to one of the two. That it's just because these are the ones that are running everybody. I spent 4 years living in Colorado. I covered the Colorado Buffs. I was one of the only guys at the local market who went out, because that was at a time when CU was just an afterthought. And certain people went, most people didn't. You didn't give a shit. It was a Denver Broncos town, and we really didn't care anything about college football. That, of course, has all changed over the years. For the life of me, I am just in lockjaw anger, I guess you could say, at what they have done with this program in order to basically sell out and make a buck. I get that you wanted Deion Sanders to come in. I get it that he made something different. I get it that he changed the culture. He basically brought in guys who were nothing more than hired guns to come in. He ripped through the normal culture of college athletics and gave you a team that wins. Doesn't win big. You're still 9-4 at the end of 1 year. But at least you're on a run. Okay, I get it. They're all shook and excited right now that they're actually relevant again. People are talking about CU football. But to retire the numbers of 2 players who have been there for such a short period of time, including Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, are they retiring Shedeur and Travis's number?
They're retiring Shedeur and Travis's numbers. They've both been there for a couple of years. The only reason they're doing it is to kiss Deion's ass and thank him for making them relevant again and putting money in their pocket. Look, they're changing. They're going away from, at Deion's insistence, they're going away from grass turf to an artificial turf because he doesn't want to play in the cold and wants to make sure that the turf has got some kind of heating to it. So, but it's his money that's brought him in. He's made them relevant again, so now everybody is spending money. But Sanders is a guy, I'm sorry, you lose me. 13-12 in 2 seasons, basically. I think he went 1-8 in conference play. Yeah, over 4,000 yards passing in a season, but that's because Daddy was running the offense and made every play to run for his kid. You still didn't get to a conference title game. You're still not at that point of a national title. It may get there, but I still am of the effect that Deion is going to blow out of that school. Now that Shedeur is gone, Deion Sanders is on mark time. He'll take the first big NFL gig that comes his way. He will walk and wipe his hands of it, and you guys are going to be back to irrelevance again.
So I actually don't think he'll take any NFL gig because I believe...
Back up, yeah. Certain ones, yes.
Certain ones. And now, okay, you're hitting on a bunch of issues here in a bunch of angles, and you're right on a lot of them. I'm just, some of them I'm not going to argue. No.
What's the
it's not that it
point? Go ahead.
Well, and I'm not trying to be contentious. This is the way college athletics work these days.
Yeah.
And we can bark up a tree or not about how it works. If you want to be good or you want to be relevant, you find yourself a coach like Deion. You bring him in.
Got it.
He makes some noise. You bring in some the thing that happened with Deion was not just his name is Deion Sanders. He built Jackson State or Jacksonville State. I can't remember where it was. I think it was Jacksonville State. Jackson State, thank you. He built them into a friggin' power on the FCS level. And everyone's watching going, holy shit, what's going on there?
Which is not difficult to do if you've got Deion Sanders' name and you've got the current rules in college football, which allow players to come in as hired guns.
Yes.
And it allows you to make a team instead of spending years recruiting. That's the difference.
100%. So now, if you're Colorado, you absolutely do what they did. you almost sell your soul to the devil. So you're not arguing that. You're not arguing
not
that
at all. You have to become relevant. You've got to make money, and in the changing
Okay.
conferences and the way things are right now, it was the only way for CU to get back on the national map.
Now, one thing Deion then did, Deion kind of took a page out of Calipari's book, whether you like John or not. Calipari said, I want these kids to be ready to go to the NBA. I want all my players to go to the NBA. Like, that was his goal. Deion's goal is I want these kids to be ready to go to the NFL. He knows where they've come from. They're not coming from successful families like you and I. A lot of them are coming from poverty-stricken areas.
Given.
Yep. They're the only shop to take care of mom. I'm not even going to say mom and dad. They're the only shop to take care of mom.
Fair.
It is fair. And so he built that program and he built that system for this reason. Do I believe Shedeur Sanders is as good as he is at quarterback? I believe Travis Hunter's the real deal.
Yeah.
I've never believed Shedeur is the real deal. If Shedeur doesn't have the name Sanders, if Shedeur's name is Berliner, I think he's getting drafted in the second or third round.
Maybe not even at that point.
Maybe not even.
But if you look at it, it still is a point. If you bring it up for Deion Sanders took that job not to send kids to the NFL. He took it to increase Deion Sanders' marketing, Deion Sanders' name. He took it so that he could eventually work his way. It's the reason he did it. Don't tell me. I know people who've followed this guy for years and who have discussed a lot of this under the table. He has done this because he wants a route to the NFL. He doesn't give, and this is the opinion of many people I've talked to, he doesn't give a damn if Colorado succeeds in the next 5 years. They will probably, because they'll have another name that will be built up and players will want to come. But when Deion Sanders leaves that program, how many kids are going to want to transfer to get to CU? Not as many as you think. It's not an attractive place to go for them.
It won't. And this is what's going to happen in college athletics. That's the danger of hiring the hired gun as the head coach. Once the hired gun checks out, you've lost everything. You're back to square one.
Maybe not back to square one, but you certainly aren't at the level that you were.
Yeah, and by the way, to your point, the level that the Colorado was, 2 years, it was this year or 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they start like 3-0. And including me, everyone went, I'm like, holy shit, this is working for Deion because they think they beat TCU. And they wind up absolutely crashing and burning back down to earth.
Right.
Last year, they had a very good season. Little falter at the end, but they're in the running for the Big 12 champion to play in the Big 12 championship game. Then they get the bowl game, crashed and burned back down to earth in the Alamo Bowl. Absolutely crashed and burned. It was god awful. They got absolutely dump trucked.
But why?
Probably checked out.
The players were checked out. They weren't playing for the national championship. The players are worried about the NIL money. They're worried about their NFL status. The players are all thinking about the transfer portal. And that's what happens when you get involved in the current era of college football. If you're not playing in that playoff, and if you've basically wound up in the second and third tier, you've not only got coaches that maybe are not doing their best job, you got players that are checking out because they go, what do I want to get injured for? I want to play in a third-rate game. I want to take a chance at my NFL status and break a knee or take a concussion. That's the problem that you're in right now, and that's why you'll get to those games that won't mean shit to these players anymore.
I remember the first time. I remember when Christian McCaffrey pulled out of the Rose Bowl for Stanford, and I think he was the first player who was not in a playoff. And he pulled out of a major bowl. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is a bowl game. Growing up, my dad asked me to grab the TV from upstairs in his bedroom. And we had two TVs side by side. In Woonsocket, Rhode Island, you say side by each. We had them side by side because that was back when you could put NBC had a game at 1 and 4, and then the Orange Bowl at 8. ABC had the Sugar Bowl at 8. You could have all the bowl games on at the same time. We put two televisions to watch two games all at the same time.
Because
And
bowl games meant something to the fans, they meant something to the boosters, but they meant something
Yes.
to the players. They don't mean shit anymore
I agree.
unless you're
I agree.
playing for a national title.
I agree. And Christian McCaffrey was the first one that I remember who said, I'm out. I'm going to think about myself for the NFL.
And I don't, you know something? Back then, I remember this. It was like, oh, what the hell's wrong with you, kid? You got to get in there and play. You got to go play for your team. Now, 2025, hey, you're doing the smart thing, because if you get busted, and how many times, I'm trying to remember, I think it was, and this goes back a long, long time, where in a bowl game, Melvin Bratton for the University of Miami
in 87
was in a bowl game and he got wrecked his knee, I believe it was, in a game that really meant nothing, cost him his career. Bratton was the guy
it won Miami a national championship.
Won Miami national championship, but I'm talking about Bratton's career.
But for Bratton, correct? Because so hang on, I love.
And there's a lot of kids out there whose careers, whose possibilities in the NFL have been ruined because they got wrecked in a game that meant absolutely nothing.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
So I say for these kids, go. I mean, I'm all with it. You want to take the bowl game off? Take the bowl game off. Fans can scream all you want, but that's your livelihood for the rest of your life.
Great, especially now in this day and age of NIL.
Sure. But it comes down to, again, with regard to Colorado, you're still playing with fire, but I guess they're going to say it's worth it. We've made money. Yes. We're updating our stadium. People are talking about the Buffaloes again. We're actually selling tickets. People want to come by for the season ticket ranks. It's worth it. My question is, I want to look ahead when Deion Sanders leaves. Let's look 5 years into the future after Deion Sanders leaves, and let's talk then. Let's see if it was worth it then, because he is going to leave.
Oh, God, yeah. You want to know? The only reason he's sticking around this year is because he's going to basically say, see, I told you all I was not going to leave, meaning after Shedeur graduated and Shiloh graduated. He's doing this for 1 year to say, I told you all, and he's gone after next year.
This will be the year where we will hear more rumors, innuendos, and under-the-table thinkings about where Deion is going. And I guarantee you, mark this down, somewhere, somebody is going to come up with the Deion Sanders going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That shit is going to be the first thing that comes up. It'll be the thing that will drive everybody, and we'll be talking about this for months to come. And Deion will be thrilled because it'll make him all the money, and he will eventually get the job that he wants.
Exactly.
So, anyway, all right, let's get out of here. By the way, and again, hats backwards still. What was the NBA final? Hat backwards still sucks. Don't forget that if you want to go ahead and email us, please do fastestshowinsports@gmail.com. Don't forget, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, that's fine. But if you're listening on podcast, go to @thefastestshow in sports on YouTube, and you can watch the show there as well. And if you're just listening on podcast, every place you get a podcast, there it is. You can find it, and you can find it on the smart places as well. Anything else? Quick hit?
Hang on. You ready? You really want me to piss you off? You really want to piss you off?
Why do you wait until the end of the show, Winter?
WrestleMania weekend, baby!
You know, I got to be honest with you. It was sitting on my list of things to look at this week was WrestleMania, because it is time. Wrestling sucks. It was fun to watch as a kid, but now it's if you want to watch it, that's fine. If you want to bet on it, go ahead. But it's all just entertainment. There's no real wrestling.
Do not bet on wrestling. Do not bet on wrestling. Do not bet on something that is
really? There's something you won't bet on?
Do not bet on something that is scripted. That is the dumbest friggin' thing you can ever do in the history of mankind. It is scripted. I get it.
Of course it is.
This is my adult soap opera. So, I mean, if the women can have days of their lives and all these Real Housewives shows and all this crap, I can have wrestling. WrestleMania weekend, baby.
Okay. You know, in that sense, I can't really argue with it. I don't watch wrestling either, because it's all just scripted entertainment, and it's gotten to the point where it's so ludicrous, I can't even watch it and enjoy it. I'd rather go dig deeper into things like Bosch Legacy on Amazon Prime, The Handmaid's Tale, brilliant show.
You're
Reacher.
You're intelligent. I fall for the easiest apple at the tree.
But that's okay. That's okay. It's all right. Look, the thing about wrestling that I really got to back up on, it's harmless, I guess. You know, I guess.
Define harmless. I mean, these guys still do get hurt. But
Well,
yes.
but I'm talking about for the fan. It's harmless. It's just entertainment.
It's harmless
Is all
fun.
it is. It's not gonna.
It's storytelling, and the more I actually appreciate it.
They're all jacked up and drugged out on steroids, but hey, except for
no,
that.
not anymore. Not in Vince McMahon's long gone, Ed. Vince is
Oh
long
yeah,
gone.
but come on, it still happens. You can tell me all about it, but the culture still exists. You don't get that big without artificial enhancements. Whether it's in wrestling or in the bedroom. But that's another story altogether. There you go. Don't forget, join us again on podcast and YouTube. He's Kevin Winter. I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks for joining us. Happy Easter. Happy Passover. Happy all the good stuff. Please be with your families and enjoy it. For Kevin, for Mike, who's not here, for Ed, all the guys that are here. Rock on, true believers. Till next time. Say it.
That's all, folks.